Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you have a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have the Fragment event calendar coming out for EOSTRID Dream Song. So, April 4th all the way to the 17th, we're going to have a lot of activities to do if you want to get your hands on the new Legendary Champion. There are some extra fragments along the way, which we're going to discuss. Some things you can do if you want to forego some particular events or tournaments, as well as if you want to collect it later for something else, which we'll break down later on. So, with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of get into the calendar. We'll talk about some ways you can have some overlapping benefits and, you know, kind of basically get more bang for your buck, aka your energy. And resources along the way. So, with that being said, Thursday, which is the time of this recording, we have Fire Night Tournament starting up. So that's 5 fragments there, along with the Champ Training Tournament that you can get an additional 10 plus 10 if you win the leaderboard. So you get 10 right there for just doing the Champ Training. I think it is spread out. I believe, as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and go to the game room for a quick moment here. I was doing my Doom Tower runs in the background. But I believe if you go inside the tournament, you'll see that they have it spread out. So you can do the first part, and then, of course, you can do a little bit more, basically double down on your points, and you'll be able to get the second part. I won't lie, the rewards are kind of nasty. I mean, Void Shards are very valuable. In my opinion, Chaos Ore is top tier, especially for giving you another chance at a piece of gear. Legendary books, who doesn't need books? We always got legendaries we want to book up, right? So, a lot of value there, and it may be worth going the distance, and that's something to keep in mind as to my justification for what I'm about to say. So, Fire Night Tournament is also active at this point in time, but I would recommend maybe considering holding off. And the reason why is this. There's no overlapping event that allows you to get something in addition to that. So if you pay attention to the next following day, we have Champ Chase, which is going to be basically summoning for what you get, not what you have or what you're using. So this is where you could use like your fragments if you had some champions from Doom Tower that you're ready to summon. If you had... you know, remnants or even shards for that matter, fusible champions like your broad malls that you've been cooking up on the side. This could be a great opportunity for you to get those points on that same day as well. And, you know, you could use it. So it's not what type of shard you use. That's for Summer Rush. It's what you get out of it. So you want the higher value champions, and you can do that. Like if I wanted to, I could summon my Erics, my Uros, and I'd probably be already on my way, you know, to set and sail, right? So if you have any extra champions that you're waiting to use, you can use those as well as those remnant summons if you've been doing your Sin City progression, as well as anything else that'd be fusible to get you along the way. So, like if you've been preparing a lot of broad malls for events like this, this is the time, right? However, on top of that, and this is why I would say maybe it might be worthwhile for you to wait, Fire Night's tournament still is ongoing for the next 2.5 days, roughly. And at that point, we have Dungeon Divers event number 1. This is where you have some overlap where you can get more bang for your buck. So already starting off Thursday, I think that you hit the ground running, try to get as much as you can done with champ training, and level up and get some food ready for various different things you're going to do. You know, champions you want to use in Sin City, champions you've been wanting to work on from a legendary standpoint. You know, maybe developing champions for that Mikage fusion if you're working towards it. This is a great opportunity to maybe play some catch up on your account's champion progression. Leading into Friday, though, is where I would start hunkering down and start preparing yourself to transition from your normal champion training grind, maybe from, you know, doing it in campaign, or if you do it in other ways, you can technically do it over there too as well still, but, you know, get most of your champ training done ahead of time. And then on Friday, going into Saturday, these are the days that I would actually designate as a way to just farm into Fire Night tournament so you can get your value out of the tournament for Fire Night, as well as Dungeon Divers event number 1. Now, on Saturday, we have 2 isolated events coming up, which is you can kind of do them immediately, ad hoc, however you want to approach it. Classic Arena Takedown number 1 is up, and as well as Artifact Enhancement number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here and kind of skip ahead in terms of some of the Artifact Enhancements. There's 3 in total. I hold a rule that you want a minimum of like 15 to 20 mil per Artifact Enhancement event. So if you guys are planning ahead of time right now, you want to be like 20, 40, maybe even 60 mil ahead, just to give you a cushion to work with in terms of your artifact. Don't overdo it. Get what you need for your points and then stop, because you want to save the rest of your silver for the next couple artifact enhancements events. Now, if you're a spender, if you like to be a little bit more luxurious with your approach in the game, then this may not apply to you. But if you're trying to be a little bit more frugal with your resources, this is a great, like, not an end-all be-all, but it's a great starting point. This will be a great opportunity for you also to take those artifacts that are already kind of pre-leveled up, like the little 14s and the 15s that you're ready to take to 16. Go ahead and get them all the way up there, because it's based off of the break point of you hitting certain areas, so 8, 12, 16 respectively. And you'll see that whenever you check the info tab, whenever you go into that particular event. Artifact or classic Arena Takedown, pretty much you could do with daily refills, so like your 10 that you get when you first wake up, as well as, like, you know, refills that you get from a daily basis, your daily login, quest and stuff like that. That'll definitely help you out. If you have additional refills, then you can technically brute force a little bit faster, but as long as you're staying on top of it throughout the day, I believe it's like a 3-day total worth of experience, so you probably will have it for pretty much a couple resets, and that should get you along the way. Those are typically not very demanding, and it leads all the way up until Tuesday, so you got plenty of time to get it done. Just make sure you stay on top of it. By this point, though, I will say going into Sunday, you're pretty much already concluding some of your first initial tournaments like the Fire Night. And at this point, I would say you want to at least be done with Fire Night tournament going into Dungeon Divers being complete itself. If you're not complete with Dungeon Divers, because sometimes they like to make the amount of points requirements for it to be a little bit higher, that's okay. Because we have Spider Tournament also coming in on that Sunday, which can be the thing that you could do to complete whatever's left over. Now, here's how I would look at it. Get majority of your champ training done on Thursday, leading into Friday maybe. And then Friday evening, maybe Friday, Saturday, you're doing mostly Fire Night going into Dungeon Divers. At this point, though, if you're already done with Fire Night and you're not done with Dungeon Divers, that's okay. I would take a pause from doing anything dungeon related and just go focus back on champ training and get that finished. Leading into Sunday. Sunday is when you'll probably end up having to finish off anything that's related to Dungeon Divers number 1. And you could pretty much take a little bit of a break there too as well. If you get the Dungeon Divers event done, take a pause, make sure your classic, your artifact enhancement's done, finish off that champ training, because on Monday, that's when that one ends. So I would be very, very, very diligent on that and just make sure you're on top of it. However, here's where another overlap happens. This is where Spider Tournament overlaps with Dungeon Divers number 2. It happens almost immediately afterwards. So it seems like we're going to have a Dungeon Diver event basically back to back. And I would be very, very aware of it. There's 2 overlapping tournaments. There's Spider on the tail end of it, and then Dragon on the early end of it. So I would definitely take this opportunity, once you see Dungeon Divers event number 2, to go ahead and just finish Spider. This is also a great opportunity to maybe do some preemptive farming if you have extra resources and you're like, man, I'm a little low on that silver, like if I don't have that 60 mil in hand. This could be a great opportunity maybe to embellish a little bit. If you have the means to do like food farming in addition to that Spider Tournament, this could be a great way for you to also kind of grab that too as well. But make sure that you're done with it before the end, or towards the middle point of like Dungeon Divers number 2. So like leading into Tuesday, I would say Spider Tournament, you should be pretty much finished. And the reason why is that even if Dungeon Divers 2 isn't finished, then you can jump back in on it on Wednesday when we have Dragon Tournament. And that'll be a great opportunity for you to overlap another set of points. Now, there's nothing else outside of Artifact Enhancement on Wednesday and Champ Training on Thursday. So I would say that, like, for the most part, I would try to burst as much points as you can to finish off Dungeon Divers. If you so happen to conclude Dragon Tournament on top of that, that's fine. Artifact Enhancement number 2 is also going to be its own independent, isolated thing during this period. Pretty much just enchant stuff, like how we did with AE1. But there is an overlap on Champ Training going into Dragon Tournament on Thursday. So if you aren't sure about like how much time you're going to have, this could be a great opportunity for you to maybe take it down a couple stages instead of farming at like the hardest stage you could do. Maybe take it down a couple stages where you can include food into your team, or if you have that designated duo or that solo farmer that can farm at the pretty decent levels, then this is where I would bring it out. Maybe that Nishak or insert like Theodore, something around those lines that you have, and maybe do some food farming while you're also finishing up the Dragon Tournament. That is probably where it gets a little tricky, because if you finish off your Dragon Tournament early on, then you can kind of pivot and work your way through like farming more food focused like areas. Maybe you go back to campaign where you can do a little bit of grinding there. Just be careful with it, and just make sure you're staying on top of the champ trainings. Those are the linchpins in this particular calendar, from what I can see so far, that are kind of laced in there a little sneakily. And if you're not on top of it, you can end up missing out on some rewards that are very, very important. However, we'll talk about some things you can kind of skip down the road, so hang tight a little bit. Now, we do have a Summer Rush on the 15th of April. This one right here is a little interesting because there is something that I'm going to talk about here on the tail end as well, with a potential event that may be worthwhile for you to consider in terms of being a little bit frugal with. However, as always, Summer Rush is based off of what you use. This is on your actual shard count. So I would say for Champion Chase going into this, since it's starting off with Champion Chase, your best bet is try to be as less strenuous on your actual shards and try to find other ways to get your points. Because on the shard side for Summer Rush, it is what you use. So using your Sacreds, using your Primals, using your Voids, using your Ancients, they all have a different value point. So the higher you go in terms of like getting to Sacreds, the better the points. And of course, the lower you go, the less of the points. I will say that we are kind of in the tail end of the 5th anniversary, so player may be generous and they may give us some extra points for using Ancient Shards or something around those lines. Just be on the lookout. Pay attention to the info card whenever you go into that particular event/tournament, and that'll give you an indicator if there's anything extra you can get in terms of points. It is its own isolated event outside of summoning, but there is a champ training, so this is a great way to process food as you're kind of working through, summoning. So that's a great way to kind of maybe like flush out your account in terms of like extra stuff you're using or extra stuff you're getting, right? If you do happen to get a banger, then, let me know in the comments below. I'm definitely curious to see what you got. But also, like, take this opportunity to maybe level up that champion because you get extra points there too as well, right? We do have on Saturday, though, and this is where we have the final overlap of particular areas. We have Ice Golem Tournament along with Dungeon Divers. I believe Dragon and DD3 looks like they have a very small overlap, if not at all. So I would go ahead and assume that that's not the case, and I would dedicate mostly Ice Golem to Dungeon Divers 3 primarily. That's your main focus there. Now, there are some solo builds and some duo builds that maybe you could use that can also incorporate food there while there's a champ training going. So there's a good way to triple dip in terms of some of your points there. So if you have that built-up Artec, if you have that built-up duo, whatever that case may be, then definitely go ahead and get those knocked out at the same time. Save you some silver, or save you some energy for that matter. We do have a Classic Arena Takedown 2 as well. It's the same thing as Takedown 1. It's not overly long. The more elongated a event or tournament is, the more strenuous the points. That's a good indicator that you can kind of peep out. So, like, if you pay attention to champ training and on both tournament and event, they're kind of longer. So that means that the point requirement is going to be a little bit more steeper. Classic Arena Takedown 2 is kind of on the same pairing as Takedown 1, so as long as you're keeping the same status quo, you should be okay. It's all about consistency, staying on top of it, using your refills as best you can, and using any regenerable metals to do some more of those arena fights. That's how you get through it. At the end of this, though, we have one final artifact enhancement event, which will allow you to get the last little bit of fragment points possible available for EOSTRID, and that's pretty much just, like I said, enchanting again, just like the others. Now, I am going to disappear for you here for a moment, and I'm going to talk about some things here. The Champ Training Tournament is a leaderboard bracket as well as the Champ Chase Tournament. Both of these are going to allow you, if you place, I believe, in the top 2, respectively, you can get some additional points. So if you so happen to be a little bit more luxurious with your resources, as I say, then there's a great opportunity for you to basically get some extra additional fragments, and you can use it in 2 ways. One, this may allow you to forego some of the tail end of these tournaments. It may be, battle of attrition kind of comes into play whenever it comes to doing these fusions. If you're tired of doing stuff, or if you're worried about those little too tricky events that I was telling you about in terms of champ training, you have 10 points you can get from those particular leaderboard brackets. Maybe you drop doing the champ training on the tail end. That's one way you could do it. The same thing is also true for a lot of other areas. Like if you don't want to spend more artifact enhancements, or if you're not particularly fancy into Dungeon Divers, you can kind of pick what you want to do. I will say this particular fragment event seems to have a pretty good overlap with the dungeons and the Dungeon Divers events associated to them. So I would say that may be less of an inclination to go and forego those. Do that in tandem because you're going to do it anyways, and then get rid of the ones that you may not necessarily want to do. That are kind of isolated. The artifact enhancements, maybe the classic arenas. Although I think those are fairly easy, so I probably wouldn't skip those. Just something to keep in mind. Now, if you do happen to win both of them, then you could actually maybe even skip a summon event. There's a summon rush at the tail end that's 15 points, and if you get 20, then that kind of saves you some. Now, even with that being said, though, there's a 10 extra gap window that you'll be able to get for just doing the tournaments and the events themselves, which is very, very interesting, to a total of 130. So if you take the 20 away, you still have 10 extra that you can get. This is something to play in mind with, and this is where I will say there could be value in doing the entire thing depending on what your position is of this champion. So there is a champion right now that you can get from fragment conversions, and that is High Mother Mod. I did a breakdown on a video before. If you want to go check it out, take a look at it. She has a very interesting kit, and she could be very valuable in a lot of opportunities like Hydra, depending on where you're at in the game. She could be a general good usage across the board. She's a good champion, right? If you so happen to want to push more aggressively towards High Mother Mod, then getting all the fragments would be better suited. So the extra 10 that you would have, look at it as Mother Mod High Mother Mod fragments. If you don't, however, want to, I would typically lead towards the areas where there's bad overlap or there's something that I don't want to participate in. Maybe, champ training might be a little bit demanding. I kind of feel like that one right there on the particular tail end might be the one that might catch people off guard. So look out for one of those. And then, of course, on top of that, too, if you so happen to have the ability to, maybe you could skip something else, Maybe forego the champ training on the top side if you're planning on accumulating all the rest of your points elsewhere. But just keep in mind that these type of tournaments that have like the extra 10, the extra 15, they're typically spread, so you're not going to get it in one burst grab. You're going to have to go a couple steps up, like how I showed you in the champ training. So I'd be very careful with that, and just be mindful of what your resources are. Now, with that being said, how I'm going to do it, I'm probably going to just kind of progress like how I said. I'm going to do a lot of champ training myself, get that knocked out early on, and then try to prepare for Fire Night. Fire Night's a great opportunity, and I am going to segue to this a little bit here. Each one of these events have an associated like what they call it, a drop fever, which is basically they have a designated set that you can get inside that dungeon that you can farm aggressively towards, and they have an exponential, or not an exponential, but an increased chance rate for you to get those type of pieces. So, like, for example, on Thursday, we're going to get regen. I have the information on the side here. On Thursday, we got 2x regen, which is going to fall in line with Fire Knight, right? On Sunday, which is where we're going to have Spider's Den, right? That's when they're going to have a 2x event drop for Sylvan Watchers. It's very reminiscent of the fact that EOSTRID is going to be a summon, you know, specifically for Sylvan. So, great way to maybe pick up some preemptive accessories for her in particular. Or if you have that Elva or insert other Sylvan Watcher champion that you want to get a little bit more upgrades for, this is a great opportunity to farm that. And then on top of that, on Wednesday, they're going to have a 2x speed. So, if we're looking at the calendar Wednesday, they really did something new with the last anniversary event with Armands. They did this, and I like this. I think this is a very good way to encourage players to also participate in the fragment event, but also get something in addition to that, because a lot of people love speed events for Dragon. That's pretty much one of the big things that a lot of people farm. You're always looking to get that extra 1 or 2 points of speed to take you to the next level, right? Well, being able to farm that in addition to a fragment or a fusion type event is a W. You were going to farm it anyways for the champion, right? So you might as well go and get those points. I digress. Saturday, they are going to provide a Ice Golem related event. So if you see it, it's in tandem with those where you're going to have a 2x for Provoke. If you like those Hydra champions that may not necessarily have Provoke on them, but it solves that problem for you, gives you a little bit more of an edge in terms of, you know, consistency with landing Provoke for Hydra. That could be a great way to do it. Or if you use it in other means, that could be another way to encourage, you know, farming for that particular event or that tournament during that period of time. So there's some really interesting dynamics that are going to be kind of incorporated with this, but I do feel like this is a pretty straightforward one. Get your classic arenas, get your artifact enhancements done in between. If you get extra tournament points, you can either convert them into EOSTRID, or not EOSTRID, but High Mother Mod fragments to get closer towards her summoning, or you could just basically forego some of the tail end of some of these tournaments and events. I personally would say that, like, some of the first ones I would chop off would probably be like artifact enhancement, save you some silver, or maybe even that champ training. Maybe you don't want to have to constantly process food because it becomes very daunting. That could be one thing that you could do to kind of like clear that out for yourself. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Is there something that you feel like I missed out that could be valuable for a player who's trying to be frugal with their resources? Or if you're on the more luxurious side, say, screw it, I'm just going to full send every single event that I get and just have fun with it. Let me know. I'm very curious. And as always, I want to thank you guys again. We did just recently hit the 1,000 mark subscriber on the subscriber side for our channel, and I want to thank every single one of you guys that have supported me, and anyone of you guys that went out of your way to try to get more people to follow us and join us on this journey, and I want to thank you guys tremendously for that. So with that being said, thank you so much, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, stay ascended.